This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Where do I even start with this? I asked you guys on Twitter and Instagram for the biggest tech fails and disappointments of the year, and there's so many to choose from. Let's start with quite a big one, and it is still a bit of an open wound, but I think we have to talk about Cyberpunk 2077. The first time ever a AAA game has been removed and refunds offered on console. Even the shareholders are threatening to sue CD Projekt Red. Don't get me wrong, it's a brilliant game if you're on a next-gen console or a high-end PC and haven't suffered from any game-breaking bugs. But really it's a victim of its own hype and viral marketing. Give it another 6 months and maybe we'll see it turn into a success story, a little bit like No Man's Sky perhaps. And credit to CDPR, their 1.05 and 06 patches have already made a big difference to performance and crashes, especially on older consoles. But for now, I'm just enjoying all the memes and crazy bug compilations. Next up, I want to talk about graphics cards, and you can probably guess why. Both Nvidia and AMD have just failed to meet the demand for their latest graphics cards. For Nvidia particularly, this has been going on for months now. I mean, their RTX 3000 series cards offer huge performance boosts and much better value for money than the previous gen, so unsurprisingly, there's been unprecedented demand for them. But it's been incredibly difficult to actually buy one. Although of course the pandemic and scalpers have made things even worse. To get real with you for a second, I've made a whole bunch of videos on the 3000 series, reviews, roundups, testing it in Cyberpunk and all that, and while it's been great to show off how capable they are and genuinely good value, it's just been really frustrating to say all this stuff, to show them off, but then you guys simply can't buy them. To be fair, it is just as bad with AMD, not to mention how hard it's been to get a PS5 before Christmas, although no doubt the pandemic's had a huge impact on production. So it's not just Nvidia, but I think stock issues have been one of the biggest sort of tech fails of the year. Okay, we have to talk about Quippy, which you've either never heard of, or more likely just read the news about this up-and-coming streaming platform which was created by a former chairman of Disney Studios and had billions of investment, has now shut up shop just months after first launching. So Quippy was kind of a mashup between YouTube and Netflix. Quick and accessible, but with high production short TV shows. But with the pandemic basically getting rid of commutes for a lot of people, a lack of any real must-watch content, and hundreds of so-called executives who didn't really know what they were doing, despite the best of intentions, Quippy's going down as one of the biggest tech flops of the year. I'll tell you what isn't a tech fail though, Surfshark VPN. Seamless segue. And there's actually a great holiday deal on right now. If you click the link below or use the code Chap at the checkout, you can get 84% off and a whopping 4 months extra free. And it lets you browse safely, preventing tracking ads, malware, and all that bad stuff, while also letting you access websites and content that may be restricted by your location. Plus, Surfshark is really easy to use and it never gets in the way. So why not give it a try, use the code Chap or click the link below to get started. Okay, this one is a little bit more controversial, but I think Huawei has to be on this list. The P40 Pro and the Mate 40 Pro, I think, are two of the very best phones of the year, especially in terms of design, camera quality, and battery life. But without Google Play services or access to the Play Store, it's been incredibly hard to recommend them to the average consumer, which is such a shame. Separately, I think the Huawei MateBooks continue to be among my favorite thin and light laptops, but Huawei's phones specifically have been so hamstrung by the software restrictions that while there are workarounds with phone clone, downloading APKs, and of course their Huawei app gallery, it's still a gigantic pain in the arse, although maybe this is more of a shame than a fail situation. But I am looking forward to seeing what Huawei does in 2021. Now sticking with phones. Sort of. The LG Wing and Microsoft Surface Duo both popped up in a bunch of your replies. Now I didn't actually get a chance to review them properly, so no final judgments from me, but the Duo, while offering an interesting mobile Windows form factor, was just let down by dated hardware, rubbish cameras, and a pretty hefty price tag. The LG Wing definitely got a more positive, or at least curious reaction. I mean, the fully articulating second screen definitely turned heads and it looked great for shooting and watching video, but it's just a bit impractical and gimmicky. However, I don't think either of them are really a fail because the last thing I want to do is discourage brands from innovating, trying new things, and experimenting. That's what drives this tech industry forward, and while we can easily criticize things for being gimmicky or a bit silly, at least they're trying something different. So even if maybe you shouldn't actually buy one, it is great to see these sort of experimental, innovative products. And fingers crossed for better second-gen models this year. Okay, moving on, and there's just one word for this. Exynos. I've made several videos basically ranting about Samsung's Exynos chips and how the S20 and the Note 20 phones in the UK and other parts of the world simply aren't as good as the ones powered by Snapdragon chips which you get in, say, North America. Now, fingers crossed, the new Exynos in the upcoming S21 will create some kind of parity between them, but it's incredibly frustrating that what is essentially the same phone with the same price can be 20% less powerful and have an hour or two less battery in one country than another. I do appreciate Samsung giving Qualcomm some proper competition, but not if the customer loses out. Okay, this one feels like a million years ago, but do you remember back in May when the OnePlus 8 Pro came out? And one of the new features was an infrared photochrome lens, which on the face of it just gave everything a weird sepia negative look, but we quickly realized it could see through some materials, including plastics and even clothes. So privacy concerns around OnePlus's X-ray camera that can see through clothes got picked up pretty quick by news outlets. So it didn't take long for OnePlus to update and remove the feature, which meant we basically ended up with one extra useless lens on the phone, but it was definitely one of the bigger faux pas of the year. So lots of things have gone wrong in 2020, clearly, but I'm a pretty positive guy. I like to look on the bright side of things, so there were also some very big positive tech stories as well. Firstly, Apple's M1 chip. It's not very often that we see a genuinely revolutionary jump in PC hardware, but the M1 just blows the Intel Macs out of the water. And for some apps that are optimized for Apple Silicon, the entry-level MacBook Air is faster than a top-spec Pro 16. I actually had the opportunity to interview 2 senior Apple VPs about it, as well as review the MacBook Air and Pro, and it's properly exciting stuff. We've also had the big console launches this year, which some of you will probably think is a massive fail, especially if you still can't get your hands on a PS5 or a Series X, but both Sony and Microsoft's next-gen consoles are huge leaps forward. Performance, load times, even how they boost old games. And for the £450 or $500 price tag, a similarly spec'd gaming PC would cost you probably 3 times more. And also I think the DualSense controller is one of the big surprise highlights of the PS5. So while there aren't a ton of next-gen games just yet, and they're still kinda hard to come by, I think the PS5 and the Series X deserve a mention here. Another big success story is video conferencing apps, your Teams and your Zooms and your Skypes and Discords. As annoying and frustrating as those Zoom meetings can be, I think it would have made this pandemic a whole lot harder, both professionally and socially, hanging out with your friends. Which brings me to the big one, the most underrated big tech success story of the year. All the scientists, engineers, technicians, and doctors who have worked together to come up with a COVID vaccine in about 10 months. When science, technology, and dare I even say humanity comes together, we can really achieve great things. Of course, lots of money also helped make this possible so they could streamline the process, but I think the important thing is to not get bogged down by the silly Cyberpunk glitches and the Apple headphone cases that look like bras, or the fact that graphics cards are still out of stock. We forget that tech literally changes the world all the time. I love the fact that they're trying something new, and if they have failed or if something has disappointed, at least they've tried. And most importantly, particularly say in the case of CD Projekt Red, they are doing their best to turn things around and fix things in Cyberpunk. So if you fail, that's fine, learn from your mistakes and then make it even better, but good on you for trying. What about you though? What do you think's been the biggest disappointments and maybe even the biggest win in the world of tech and gaming this year? Let me know in the comments below, and can't wait to show you all the great tech coming in 2021, so stay tuned. Oh, and also don't forget to give Surfshark VPN a try. 84% off and 4 months free with the code TechChap, or by clicking the link below.